The first time I realized my wife was lying to me, my stomach dropped before my brain could even catch up. It wasn't a message. It wasn't a call. It was a receipt. Just a crumpled piece of paper sticking out of her coat pocket while I was doing laundry. I almost ignored it. Almost. But something told me not to. And that tiny decision? Yeah, that's what blew my entire life apart. Melissa and I had been married for 8 years. We built everything together in Austin. A house, routines, inside jokes, even a dog that somehow loved her more than me. She worked in consulting, which meant work trips were normal. Expected, even. At least, that's what I believed. But over the last few months, something had shifted, and I couldn't shake the feeling. More trips, less talking, more distance, even when she was right next to me. Chicago again? I asked one night, trying to sound casual while she rushed around packing. Yeah, big project, she said quickly. Too quickly. No eye contact. That was new. Melissa used to talk. A lot. About clients, co-workers, even the boring stuff. Now, every answer felt rehearsed, like she'd already practiced it in her head. And that's where the doubt started creeping in. Slow at first, then louder, then impossible to ignore. I unfolded the receipt. My hands were already sweating. It wasn't from an airport, not even close. It was from a small boutique hotel, right here in Austin. Dated 2 nights ago. The same night, she told me she was in Chicago. I felt something snap inside me. No, there's a mistake. I muttered, even though deep down, I already knew. There was no mistake. Just like there was no explanation for why my wife, who supposedly flew across the country, had checked into a hotel 15 minutes from our house. My heart started racing. I could hear it in my ears. This wasn't just suspicion anymore. This was proof. And the worst part? I hadn't even seen everything yet. That night, I lay next to her in bed, staring at the ceiling while she slept peacefully beside me. Peacefully, like she hadn't just lied straight to my face. Like she hadn't just shattered something I didn't even know was fragile. I turned my head slowly and looked at her. "Who are you?" I whispered under my breath. Because suddenly, I wasn't sure I knew my own wife anymore. And something told me, this was just the beginning. I shouldn't have followed her. But once you see proof, you can't unsee it. And once the doubt turns into certainty, there's no going back. The next morning, she kissed me goodbye like nothing had happened. "Flight's early," she said, grabbing her suitcase. I forced a smile. "Safe travels." My voice sounded normal. That scared me more than anything. Because inside, I was already falling apart. The second she drove off, I grabbed my keys. I didn't think, didn't plan. I just followed. Every turn she made, I made. Every red light, every lane change. I stayed just far enough behind not to be noticed. My hands were shaking. My heart wouldn't slow down. "Please just go to the airport," I whispered. "Please let me be wrong." But she didn't. She passed the airport exit, didn't even hesitate. And in that moment, everything changed. She drove straight into a quiet part of Austin I barely recognized. Tree-lined streets, big houses, no traffic, too quiet, too perfect. And then she pulled in. Not a hotel, not an office, a house. I parked half a block away, barely breathing. This is nothing, I told myself. Client meeting, that's all. But then the front door opened, and he walked out. Tall, relaxed, like he belonged there, like he was waiting for her. She got out of the car and ran to him. Ran. My chest tightened so hard I thought I might pass out. And then, she kissed him. Not quick, not uncertain, not something you could explain away. No, this was real. This was practiced. This was something that had been happening for a long time. I felt like the air had been ripped out of my lungs. Everything went quiet. No birds, no cars, no thoughts. Just that image, burned into my head. My wife, with someone else. And in that moment, one thought hit me harder than anything else. This wasn't the first time. I should have driven away. That's what a normal person would do, right? You see your wife kissing another man, you leave. You don't sit there. You don't keep watching. You don't dig deeper. But I wasn't thinking like a normal person anymore. I was already in too deep. And something inside me needed to know how bad it really was. So I stayed. I don't know how long I sat there gripping the steering wheel, staring at that house like it might suddenly explain everything. 5 minutes. 10. Maybe longer. Then the front door opened again. My heart jumped into my throat. They stepped outside together, laughing, like nothing in the world could touch them. Like they didn't just destroy someone else's life. Mine. I sank lower in my seat, barely breathing as they walked toward the porch. And then, I heard it. Not everything. Just enough. He still thinks I'm traveling, Melissa said, her voice light. Casual. Like she was talking about the weather. My chest tightened. The guy chuckled. And he hasn't figured it out? She shook her head. No. He trusts me. That word. Trusts. It hit harder than anything I'd seen so far. Because she didn't say it with guilt. She said it like it was useful. Like my trust was just another tool she was using. I felt sick. Actually sick. I leaned forward, pressing my forehead against the steering wheel, trying not to lose it right there. But then she said something else. Something that made everything worse. I just need a little more time, she added quietly. Time. For what? I slowly lifted my head, my pulse pounding in my ears again. The guy stepped closer to her, lowering his voice, but not enough. What about the house? He asked. House. My stomach dropped. Melissa hesitated for just a second. Then she said it. I'm working on it. Working. On it. I felt like the ground disappeared beneath me. This wasn't just cheating. This wasn't just some secret affair. This was a plan. A slow, calculated plan that I wasn't supposed to know about. And suddenly, every work trip, every late-night message, every rushed goodbye, it all started making sense in the worst possible way. I wasn't just being lied to. I was being managed. Used. Kept in the dark while she built something else with someone else. My hands started shaking again. But this time, it wasn't from shock. It was something else. Something colder. Because in that moment, one thought became crystal clear. If she had a plan, then I needed one too. I went home and acted like nothing happened. That was the hardest part. Not the betrayal. Not the lies. Pretending I didn't know. When Melissa walked through that door 2 days later, rolling her suitcase behind her, smiling like she'd just come back from another successful work trip, I almost lost it right there. Hey, she said softly, leaning in to kiss me. And for a split second, I froze. Because now I knew exactly where those lips had been. Hey, I replied, forcing my voice to stay steady. Hook. Smile. Lie. We stood there like a normal couple. Like everything was fine. But inside, everything was burning. How was Denver? I asked, watching her carefully. She didn't hesitate. Busy. Exhausting. I swear I need a vacation after these trips, she laughed. Another lie. Clean. Easy. Practiced. And that's when I made my decision. I wasn't going to confront her. Not yet. Because if what I heard was true, this wasn't just about cheating. This was bigger. This was planned. And I needed to know everything. So I played along. For days, I became the version of myself she expected. Supportive husband. Trusting partner. Clueless. I kissed her goodbye before trips. I asked about her clients. I even laughed at her stories. Every word she said, I analyzed it. Every move she made, I watched. And slowly, pieces started falling into place. She had patterns. Specific days she'd leave. Specific times she'd text. Even the way she packed. Different outfits depending on where she was actually going. That's when I found the second phone, hidden in the back of her closet. Powered off. Burner. My pulse spiked the second I held it in my hand. This is it, I whispered. This is where everything breaks. I turned it on. Locked. Of course. But the notifications still lit up the screen for a split second before it shut again. Just enough. Just enough to see a name. D. And one message. Miss you already. Next time longer. We're close. Close. To what? My hands clenched around the phone. This wasn't random. This wasn't messy. This was organized. Controlled. Dangerous. I put the phone back exactly where I found it. Because now, I wasn't reacting anymore. I was preparing. And the more I thought about it, the clearer it became. Melissa thought she was 2 steps ahead. But she had no idea. I was already inside her game. And I was about to change the rules. I knew I shouldn't touch the phone again. But once you realize your entire life might be a lie, rules stop matching. Sleep? Gone. Peace? Gone. Trust? Completely destroyed. All I had left was one question. What exactly was she planning? 2 nights later, Melissa fell asleep early. Too early. That never happened. Another change. Another red flag. I lay next to her in the dark, staring at the ceiling, counting every second, waiting. Her breathing slowed. Deep. Steady. Asleep. I turned my head slightly. Watched her. Still couldn't believe this was the same woman I built my life with. And then, I moved. Slow. Careful. Quiet. Every step felt louder than it should have. Closet door. Creak. I froze. Waited. Nothing. I reached into the back corner. And there it was. The phone. Cold in my hand. Heavy. Like it knew it carried something I wasn't ready for. This is it, I whispered. No going back. I powered it on. Lock screen again. But this time, I was ready. I'd watched her enough. Noticed patterns. For digits. She used the same variations everywhere. Anniversary. Birthday. Our house number. I tried the first one. Wrong. Second. Wrong. Third. Unlocked. My heart dropped so hard I had to grab the shelf to steady myself. No way. I breathed. It was that easy. That careless. Or maybe, she just never thought I'd look. The messages opened instantly. Dozens. Hundreds. From D. I scrolled. And within seconds, everything got worse. Way worse. This wasn't just flirting. This wasn't just emotional. This was real. Photos. Videos. Dates. Locations. Hotels. I'd never heard of. Trips that never existed. Every work trip was there. Documented. Planned. Repeated. My stomach twisted. But then, I saw something that made my blood run cold. A message from Melissa. Once the house is in my name, we're done pretending. I stopped breathing. Scrolled up. More messages. More details. Lawyers. Paperwork. Timing. And then the final piece. He won't see it coming. I felt like I'd been punched in the chest. Hard. Everything clicked at once. The work trips. The lies. The distance. The house. This wasn't just betrayal. This was a setup. A slow, calculated move to take everything and disappear. And I was the last one to know. I stood there in the dark, gripping that phone, my entire world collapsing in silence. But then something changed. Because for the first time since this started, I wasn't confused. I wasn't guessing. I knew exactly what she was doing. And that meant one thing. I could stop it. Or I could do something much worse. I didn't confront her. Not after what I saw. Not after I realized this wasn't just betrayal. It was a setup. Because the second you show your cards in a situation like this, you lose. And Melissa? She thought she was winning. That was her biggest mistake. So I stayed quiet. Calm. Controlled. The next morning, I made her coffee. Smiled. Kissed her goodbye like I always did. Another trip next week, she said casually, scrolling through her phone. I nodded. Yeah? Where to this time? Seattle, she replied. Lie. Another one. And now? I could see right through every single one. But I didn't react. Because I had already started moving. First call I made. A lawyer. Not just any lawyer. The kind that doesn't blink when things get complicated. I sat in his office 2 days later, sliding copies of everything across the table. Messages. Screenshots. Dates. Proof. He read in silence. Then looked up at me and said one sentence that changed everything. You're not the one about to lose here. That was the moment I felt it. Not relief. Not peace. Power. For the first time since this started. I wasn't behind. I was ahead. And I was about to stay there. We moved fast. Faster than she expected. I secured my accounts. Separated finances. Documented every asset. Every payment. Every move she made. Because if she thought she was going to take the house, she clearly didn't understand who she married. But I didn't stop there. Because something about her messages stuck with me. He won't see it coming. That line. It played in my head over and over. And I realized something. She was right. But not in the way she thought. The next step? That was the part that kept me up at night. Because it wasn't just legal. It was personal. I found out who D was. Name. Job. Address. Everything. He wasn't just some random guy. He had a life. A reputation. Things he could lose. Just like I almost did. And suddenly, the situation shifted again. Because now I had options. 2 paths. Expose everything. Or, wait. Let it play out. Let her think she was winning right up until the moment everything collapsed. I stood in the kitchen that night, watching Melissa laugh at something on her phone again. That same smile. That same look. The one that used to be mine. And I realized something cold, something final. She didn't just break my trust. She underestimated me. And that was going to cost her everything. I chose the moment carefully. Not too early. Not too late. Right when she thought she had already won. That's when everything hits the hardest. Melissa spent the entire week acting lighter. Happier. Like a weight had been lifted off her shoulders. Now I knew why. She thought the plan was almost complete. She thought I was still blind. Still trusting. Still easy to manipulate. And honestly, that made what I did next feel almost fair. Friday night. She was leaving again. Seattle, she said, grabbing her suitcase. Same lie, same tone, same fake smile. I leaned against the doorframe, watching her, studying her, memorizing the version of her I would never see the same way again. Hey, I said calmly. She turned. Yeah, that was it. That was the moment. No need to pack, I said. Her smile faltered. Just for a second. What? I stepped forward slowly. Heart steady. Voice even. Because you're not going to Seattle. Silence. Heavy. Sharp. Dangerous. Her eyes changed. Not confusion. Not guilt. Calculation. What are you talking about? She asked, but it sounded weaker now. I didn't answer. Instead, I pulled out my phone, opened the messages, and handed it to her. Maybe this will help. She looked down, scrolled once, twice, and then everything drained from her face. Color, confidence, control, gone. I can explain, she whispered. Of course. That line. That predictable, empty line. I shook my head. No, I said quietly. You can't. For the first time since I met her. Melissa had nothing to say. No script. No plan. No control. Just silence. And panic. I stepped back. Gave her space. Not out of kindness. But because I was done. I already spoke to a lawyer, I added. That hit. Hard. Her head snapped up. What? The house. I continued. Not happening. Her breathing changed. Fast. Uneven. And I said, watching her closely. Yeah, I know who he is too. That was the breaking point. Because now, her world was collapsing the same way mine did. Piece by piece. You wouldn't, she started. I cut her off. You said I wouldn't see it coming. Silence. Cold. Final. Well, I looked her straight in the eyes. You didn't see this coming either. She didn't cry. Not right away. She just stood there. Frozen. Like her brain couldn't catch up to the reality crashing down on her. And in that moment, something inside me shifted. Not anger. Not revenge. Just clarity. Because I finally understood something. The woman I loved? She didn't disappear. She changed. And I was the last one to notice. I walked past her, opened the door, and for the first time in weeks, I could breathe again. Goodbye, Melissa, I said. No yelling. No drama. Just the truth. And as the door closed behind me, so did that chapter of my life. For good.